Have you ever wondered why some people move through life with absolute confidence, while others, no matter how hard they try, remain invisible? What separates the man who commands respect the moment he enters a room from the one who constantly seeks approval? Machiavelli believed the answer was hidden in a single dangerous word: ruthlessness, but not the kind you think. To him, being ruthless wasn't about cruelty or domination. It was about the courage to cut away everything that makes you weak. It was the art of mastering yourself before attempting to master the world. Most people live reacting to emotions, opinions, and the constant need to be liked. They confuse kindness with power and call their fear morality. Machiavelli saw through that illusion. He understood human nature better than anyone before or after him, and he realized something few dare to admit. Real strength is never given. It's taken piece by piece through awareness, self-control, and the discipline to do what others won't. You've probably felt it before, those moments when you knew what needed to be done, but you hesitated, when you held back your voice, your decision, your instinct, just to keep the peace. The truth is, every time you do that, you trade a piece of your power for comfort. And comfort, as Machiavelli would say, is the enemy of greatness. What you're about to learn goes beyond ordinary self-help or motivational advice. It's psychological strategy, forged in the harsh realities of power, politics, and survival. These are lessons born from observing kings, leaders, and human nature in its rawest form. The world doesn't reward purity, it rewards clarity. And clarity begins when you stop pretending that people always have good intentions, that truth alone will protect you, or that being liked will make you respected. Machiavelli's wisdom exposes the uncomfortable truth that power isn't about dominance, it's about control. Control of perception, of emotion, and most importantly, of yourself. So stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover might unsettle you. It will challenge the way you see leadership, relationships, even morality itself. You'll realize that the path to becoming dangerously confident and powerful has nothing to do with arrogance or ego, and everything to do with awareness, strategy, and restraint. These are the principles the powerful have followed for centuries, quietly, ruthlessly, while the rest of the world kept wondering how they did it. What if the strength you've been searching for isn't something you need to find, but something you need to awaken? What if the key to real confidence is hidden inside the very darkness you've been taught to suppress? Machiavelli's lessons will force you to look at that darkness and see it for what it truly is, a source of power. Now let's go deeper into the first lesson, the foundation of every great strategist and every truly powerful mind. And as you let these ideas sink in, pause for a moment and ask yourself, how do they make you feel? Have you ever faced a moment when being too kind, too cautious, or too eager to please cost you your peace, your confidence, or your power? Those moments shape us far more than success ever could. I'd love to know what comes to your mind right now. Share it in the comments, your story, your thoughts, your truth, because this channel isn't just about ancient wisdom, it's about how that wisdom lives through you. Every time you share your perspective, you give new meaning to these lessons, and someone else out there who might be struggling in silence could find exactly what they need in your words. And if what you've heard so far resonates with you, if it feels like a mirror reflecting something you've always known deep down, take a second to like this video. It's a small gesture, but it tells the algorithm, and more importantly, it tells me that these ideas matter to you, that you want more content that challenges you to think deeper, act smarter, and grow stronger. If you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. This channel exists for thinkers like you, for people who want to understand the mind, not just follow the noise. Your presence here is what keeps this space alive. Every like, every comment, every new subscriber helps this message reach others who are ready to wake up to their own power. So stay with me. We're just getting started, and the next part will take you even further into the mind of Machiavelli, into the first ruthless lesson that separates those who live with purpose from those who simply drift through life. Before we go deeper, it's important to understand something most people get completely wrong about Machiavelli. He wasn't a monster. He wasn't an advocate for cruelty or chaos. He was, above all, a realist, a man who dared to look at human nature without filters or fantasies. While others hid behind ideals, he looked at life as it truly was, a web of desires, fears, and shifting loyalties. And that's exactly why his ideas still feel so uncomfortable today. We live in a world obsessed with appearances, where people preach virtue but practice convenience, where morality bends the moment it clashes with self-interest. Machiavelli simply exposed that truth, and he paid the price for saying out loud what everyone else preferred to ignore. He understood that behind every kind gesture, there's often a calculation, behind every display of honesty, a motive. His brilliance was not in encouraging manipulation, but in revealing its existence. To him, understanding the hidden structure of power was the only way to avoid being controlled by it. That's what made his philosophy so dangerous and so liberating. When you see the world for what it is, not what you wish it to be, you gain clarity, and clarity is the foundation of true power. Think about how often people trade authenticity for approval, how often they silence their instincts just to fit in. Machiavelli's message was a warning against that kind of self-betrayal. He believed that every decision, no matter how small, shapes your inner hierarchy, whether you lead your own mind or are ruled by the expectations of others. This isn't about cynicism, it's about awareness. When you stop expecting the world to reward goodness automatically, you start to act with intention. That shift in mindset is where transformation begins. In the background of every social interaction, every negotiation, every relationship, there's a subtle exchange of influence. Most people are unaware of it. They're focused on emotions, while the powerful study structure. They observe patterns, timing, the psychology of reaction. Machiavelli's genius was translating those invisible dynamics into strategy. He showed that even in unfair systems, understanding human behavior allows you to navigate with precision instead of naivety. Now, I want to go even deeper into this idea, because once you accept that power is built on perception and awareness, not luck or kindness, everything changes. You begin to notice the invisible forces guiding your decisions, the fear of rejection, the craving for validation, the impulse to please, and when you see them clearly, you gain control over them. That's the beginning of confidence that no one can take away from you. Comment below if this resonates with you. Write, "This makes sense to me." It's simple, but it means you've started to see through the illusion. The same illusion Machiavelli exposed centuries ago. Machiavelli's first ruthless lesson is perhaps the hardest for most people to accept. Never depend on the goodwill of others. It sounds harsh, even cold, but it's one of the deepest truths about human behavior. When you rely on kindness to survive, you hand your power to someone else. You give them the ability to decide your fate, your opportunities, even your sense of worth. And no matter how sincere that person may seem, emotions are fragile. They shift with time, convenience, and circumstance. What feels like loyalty today can turn into indifference tomorrow. Machiavelli saw this pattern over and over among rulers and ordinary people alike. Those who trusted too easily were always the first to fall. It's not that generosity doesn't exist, it's that it cannot be your foundation. A life built on favors is a life built on sand. The moment the tide changes, everything collapses. True stability comes from self-reliance, the quiet certainty that your progress doesn't depend on anyone's approval or pity. That doesn't mean isolation or arrogance. It means cultivating independence so your alliances become choices, not needs. When you stand on your own, partnerships become stronger because they are born from mutual respect, not dependence. Machiavelli understood that emotional loyalty is often an illusion. People are loyal as long as it benefits them, as long as their comfort, pride, or image remains intact. When their situation changes, so does their devotion. He warned leaders not to confuse affection with allegiance, and that same wisdom applies to us today. Whether in business, friendships, or love, the strongest bonds are those reinforced by shared purpose and self-interest, not by the fragile hope that someone will always do the right thing. This lesson is not about rejecting compassion, it's about removing naivete. When you expect people to act from pure goodwill, you set yourself up for disappointment and resentment. But when you understand that everyone moves according to their motives, you stop taking things personally. You begin to see the hidden logic behind actions, and that insight protects you. It keeps your emotions from becoming weapons that others can use against you. Now I want to go even deeper into this idea, because learning not to depend on goodwill doesn't make you heartless. It makes you free. It gives you the power to act from clarity instead of desperation, to build relationships from strength instead of fear. And in that shift, something remarkable happens. Respect replaces sympathy. and influence begins to follow. If this perspective challenges you, that's a good sign. It means you're starting to see power where others still see weakness. Comment below, I choose strength. It's a reminder that your confidence should never depend on someone else's permission. Machiavelli's second lesson reveals one of the most uncomfortable truths about power. Reality matters far less than perception. The powerful don't only act, they shape how the world interprets their actions. They understand that in every human interaction, image is currency. People rarely see what is, they see what they are shown, and those who control the narrative control the outcome. Machiavelli taught that truth is fragile, but perception is magnetic. You don't have to be good, you must appear good. You don't have to be pure, you must appear trustworthy, stable, in control. That is not deception, it's strategy. Most people waste their energy trying to prove themselves through effort, believing that merit alone will make them respected. But history tells a different story. The most influential figures weren't always the most virtuous, they were the most perceptive. They knew how to project strength even in moments of doubt, and confidence even in the face of chaos. They learned that human beings are guided less by facts and more by emotion, symbolism, and storytelling. The one who crafts the story shapes reality itself. This idea might make you uncomfortable because we've been taught to believe that authenticity is enough. But Machiavelli would say that authenticity without awareness is blindness. He didn't encourage lies, he encouraged control. The goal isn't to fake your identity, but to consciously design how it's perceived. You become the director of your own presence instead of leaving your reputation to chance. In a world ruled by illusions, refusing to shape your image is the same as surrendering it to others. Think of perception as armor. When people believe you're calm, capable, and confident, they treat you accordingly. They lower their defenses. They listen differently. They trust differently. You might still have flaws, insecurities, or fears, but those no longer define you. What defines you is what you allow the world to see. This awareness doesn't separate you from authenticity. It refines it. It teaches you that self-control is not repression. It's refinement. Now I want to go even deeper into this truth, because the art of controlling perception isn't about manipulation, it's about alignment. When your image matches your intention, your presence gains coherence. You no longer react to how others see you, you decide it. That's where inner authority begins. Once you master this, you stop chasing validation and start commanding respect. Comment below, I control my narrative. Because the moment you understand this lesson, you stop living as a character in someone else's story and begin writing your own. Machiavelli's third lesson is the one that made him infamous. Fear, he said, is more reliable than love. At first glance, it sounds ruthless, even cruel, but what he meant was far more psychological than violent. Love is soft, conditional, and fleeting. It depends on emotions that shift with time and circumstance. Fear, on the other hand, endures. It is rooted in respect, in consequence, in the awareness that your strength cannot be ignored. People admire virtue, but they obey authority. Machiavelli understood that admiration is voluntary, but respect must be earned through presence, consistency, and control. To rely only on being loved is to place your fate in the unstable hands of emotion. People love you when it's convenient, when it flatters their image, or when it costs them nothing. But when love requires sacrifice or honesty, it evaporates. Fear, when built not from cruelty but from strength, creates boundaries. It tells the world where your limits are. It silently communicates, you cannot cross this line. That's not oppression, it's protection. Machiavelli never suggested ruling through terror. He warned against dependence on affection. What he valued was the energy of authority, the psychological gravity that makes others think twice before deceiving, disrespecting, or underestimating you. The most powerful individuals project this without raising their voices. Their composure, their certainty, their quiet. Discipline. All of it creates an invisible pressure that demands respect. Think about how often fear is misunderstood. It's not always about intimidation. Sometimes it's simply the absence of weakness. When people sense that you won't tolerate manipulation, they adapt their behavior. The energy of fear keeps order where love alone creates chaos. It's the same dynamic in leadership, business, even relationships. When you stand firm in your principles, others sense it instinctively. That sense of consequence shapes how they treat you. Now I want to go even deeper into this truth, because learning to project strength isn't about building walls. It's about building gravity. When your confidence carries weight, people naturally align with it. They trust your decisions because your energy communicates certainty. That's the kind of power Machiavelli respected most, the kind that doesn't need to demand obedience because it already commands it. Comment below. Strength commands respect, because love may inspire, but it is strength that endures, and the one who masters both walks through life untouchable. Machiavelli's fourth lesson is pure strategy. Always think 3 moves ahead. He saw life not as a sequence of random events, but as a grand chessboard where every emotion, word, and action shapes the future. Most people live move by move, reacting to whatever appears in front of them, but those who hold power see beyond the moment. They anticipate the ripple before the stone even touches the water. To Machiavelli, emotional reactions were the weapon of the unprepared. The one who reacts first loses control. The one who observes, calculates, and waits dictates the outcome. Every decision you make carries a cost, whether you see it now or not. Power belongs to those who can trace that cost forward, to imagine the consequences before they arrive. When you speak in anger, what bridge are you burning? When you trust too quickly, what leverage are you giving away? When you chase comfort, what opportunity are you quietly sacrificing? These questions separate the impulsive from the strategic, the dreamers from the builders. Thinking ahead doesn't mean living in paranoia. It means understanding the architecture of consequence. Machiavelli studied rulers who lost empires not because they lacked intelligence, but because they failed to see the invisible chains their emotions created. He wrote that fortune favors those who prepare for betrayal before it happens, who make peace with uncertainty by planning for it. The strategist accepts that not everyone around him is sincere. That doesn't make him cold. It makes him awake. He knows that foresight is not pessimism, it's protection. In your own life, this mindset transforms everything. You begin to pause before reacting, to analyze patterns before repeating them, to recognize manipulation before it traps you. You learn that patience is not weakness, it's leverage. Each time you resist the urge to respond, impulsively, you reclaim a piece of your power. It's the art of invisible control, guiding outcomes without revealing intent. Now I want to go even deeper into this idea, because when you start thinking 3 moves ahead, you stop chasing outcomes and start shaping them. You become the calm center in a storm of chaos, the one who sees what others miss. And in that stillness, strategy becomes intuition and foresight becomes strength. Comment below, I move with intention, because the moment you begin to see beyond the present, you stop playing the game and start mastering it. Machiavelli's 5th lesson cuts straight into the psychology of power. Hide your intentions until it's too late. To reveal your plans too soon is to invite interference, jealousy, and resistance. The moment others understand what you're building, they begin to measure themselves against you. They compare, they compete, they prepare, and in doing so, they weaken your position before you've even made your move. Machiavelli knew that visibility kills momentum. The most dangerous mind is not the one that shouts its goals, it's the one that builds quietly while others are distracted by noise. Power grows in silence. Every great strategist, from ancient rulers to modern innovators, has understood this principle. Silence is not emptiness, it is containment. It's the discipline to protect what is still in formation, because the early stages of any plan are fragile. Words expose energy. When you talk too much about your vision, you dissipate it. You invite doubt, advice, and opposition from those who don't understand your purpose. Machiavelli advised leaders to conceal their true motives behind a facade of simplicity, even confusion. Let others underestimate you. Let them think they've figured you out. Meanwhile, you're already 3 steps ahead, preparing the move they'll never see coming. This principle doesn't just apply to politics, it applies to every part of life. Think of how often people reveal their dreams prematurely, seeking validation instead of progress. They crave recognition before results, and that craving makes them predictable. But when you cultivate secrecy, not out of fear, but out of focus, your energy consolidates. You no longer need to explain yourself, you become self-directed. The silence between your actions becomes part of your power. Machiavelli would say, let your results speak, not your words. There's no defense against success that appears sudden, no argument against a victory no one saw coming. The shock of realization, the moment they ask how did he do it, that's where real dominance lives. It's psychological authority disguised as mystery. Now, I want to go even deeper into this truth, because once you understand the power of silence, you begin to see noise for what it really is: distraction. The more you protect your intentions, the more focused your execution becomes, and that's when your actions stop echoing and start striking. Comment below: silence is power. It's a reminder that in a world addicted to attention, the quiet mind always wins. Machiavelli's sixth lesson is about one of the rarest and most underrated forms of power: calmness. In a world fueled by reaction, the one who remains composed automatically rises above the rest. Composure is a weapon, sharper than anger, louder than argument. When others lose control, the calm one becomes the leader by default. People are instinctively drawn to stability, especially when everything around them feels uncertain. Machiavelli knew that true authority doesn't always come from status or strength. It comes from presence. The ability to stay still when everyone else is breaking apart creates an aura that cannot be faked. Chaos reveals character. It strips away masks and exposes who's truly in command of themselves. While most people surrender to panic, the strategist steps back, observes, and measures. That moment of pause separates the powerful from the powerless. It's not about suppressing emotion, it's about mastering it. Machiavelli understood that leadership begins within. When your mind is undisturbed, you see what others miss: the hidden motives, the subtle opportunities, the moves no one else is patient enough to see. Calmness isn't passivity, it's tactical silence. Think of the moments in your own life when tension filled the room: arguments, crises, betrayals. The person who held their ground, who didn't rush to speak or defend themselves, immediately shifted the dynamic. Their stillness created pressure. That's because silence in conflict makes people reveal more than they intend to. Machiavelli believed that composure is psychological dominance in its purest form. It doesn't require manipulation, only control, and control is contagious. When others feel you're calm, they instinctively look to you for direction. In modern life, where anxiety and overstimulation have become normal, calmness has become rare and therefore powerful. The individual who can stay centered under stress gains an edge in every arena: business, relationships, leadership. Composure builds credibility because it communicates one unshakable truth: you are not ruled by circumstance. And in a world addicted to reaction, that makes you magnetic. Now I want to go even deeper into this idea, because when you learn to be calm in chaos, you stop trying to control the storm, you become the eye of it. People sense that gravity and begin to follow it without even realizing why. That is the essence of quiet command, the kind Machiavelli admired most. Comment below: calm is my strength. It's a reminder that in every storm, the still mind doesn't just survive, it leads. Machiavelli's seventh lesson takes us to the deepest part of human nature, the place most people fear to look. To him, power wasn't about pretending to be pure. It was about embracing the truth of who you are entirely. He believed that inside every person lives a shadow, the instincts, desires, and raw strength that society teaches us to hide. But suppression doesn't create virtue, it creates weakness. When you deny your darker nature, it doesn't disappear, it controls you from beneath the surface. Machiavelli's brilliance was recognizing that true mastery begins not with denial, but with integration. The man who knows his darkness no longer fears it. He uses it as fuel. We live in a world that rewards appearances. We're told to smile, to be agreeable, to forgive endlessly, to stay positive. But underneath that facade, resentment builds, power decays, and authenticity dies. Machiavelli saw through this illusion centuries ago. He understood that morality without strength is easily manipulated, and that purity without boundaries leads to exploitation. The shadow, those parts of you that crave independence, control, and dominance, is not evil, it's energy. The question is whether you will repress it or refine it. To embrace your shadow doesn't mean becoming cruel or heartless. It means acknowledging the part of you that wants more clarity, more freedom, more truth. It's the part that refuses to play small. When you integrate that, you stop being torn between who you think you should be and who you really are. You become whole. And that wholeness radiates confidence that no facade can match. People sense it. They can't quite define it, but they feel it. A quiet danger, a grounded authority, a person who cannot be easily deceived. Machiavelli would argue that those who repress their instincts become servants to those who don't. The powerful are not immoral. They are aware. They understand both light and shadow, and they choose consciously when to use each. That's what makes them unpredictable, and unpredictability is one of the highest forms of control. The most dangerous man is not the one who hides his darkness, but the one who owns it. Now I want to go even deeper into this truth, because once you stop dividing yourself into good and bad, you stop living in conflict. You move from self-denial to self-command, from fear to authenticity, and that is the transformation Machiavelli considered the foundation of all power. Comment below, I embrace my shadow, because when you finally make peace with your darkness, you stop being ruled by it and start ruling your own life. These 7 lessons are not about manipulation, they are about clarity, about stripping away illusion until you see the world and yourself as they truly are. Machiavelli's wisdom was never meant for tyrants. It was meant for thinkers, for those brave enough to face human nature without flinching. Once you see the world as it is, not as you wish it to be, you stop moving like a pawn in someone else's game. You begin to play with awareness, precision, and purpose. That's what it means to think like Machiavelli. Power, as he defined it, isn't domination, it's direction. It's the ability to influence outcomes instead of being carried by them. Every one of his teachings leads back to the same truth. Control begins within. The man who cannot rule his emotions will be ruled by those who can. The person who depends on approval will always be trapped in fear, and the one who hides from their shadow will forever run from their own potential. To live with Machiavellian clarity is to stop apologizing for your strength. It's to recognize that self-mastery is not arrogance, it's alignment. Think about what happens the moment you stop asking for permission to be powerful. People treat you differently, you speak differently. You stop chasing validation and start creating gravity. Confidence becomes natural, not forced. You no longer react, you decide. That's the transformation these lessons point toward. A mental revolution, quiet but irreversible. And maybe as you've listened, something inside you has shifted. Maybe a part of you recognizes that this isn't about politics or control. It's about reclaiming your agency, about seeing through manipulation instead of falling for it, about walking into every situation, chaos, conflict, or temptation, with calm awareness instead of confusion. That's what the modern Machiavellian mindset truly is. Not deceit, but discernment, the courage to see reality clearly and act with intent. So ask yourself honestly, what lesson from Machiavelli do you need most right now? Which truth challenged you, or maybe even set you free? Share it below. Your reflections aren't just comments, they're proof that awareness is spreading, that more people are beginning to think deeply in a shallow world. Write it down. I'm ready to become dangerously powerful, because power doesn't come from what you conquer. It begins the moment you stop fearing your own strength. If you've made it this far, it probably means something in this message spoke directly to you. Maybe it reminded you of your own strength, or maybe it simply gave shape to something you've always felt but never put into words. Either way, that connection matters. It's what keeps this space alive. So if this journey resonated with you, take a moment to subscribe. That's how you stay close to the kind of ideas that challenge, awaken, and expand the way we see ourselves and the world. And if you felt that spark, that moment when something just clicked, leave a comment below saying, "This message was for me. I read every one." And those words tell me you're walking this path too, not just watching from the sidelines. A quiet like on this video also goes a long way. It tells me that this kind of reflection matters to you, that these conversations deserve to keep growing. And if you want to keep going deeper, there's another video right here that continues this same line of thought. Click it, and let's keep unraveling the layers together, one idea at a time.